My name's Dan Jefferson. I'm past chair of the Pipeline Industry Guild and site manager for J.N. Bentley. If we could just ask people to turn the cameras off if they're not presenting and turn their microphones off, it'd be appreciated. And if you've got any colleagues that are wanting to catch up with this, then the recording will be made available afterwards. So if I could ask with regards to any questions as we move through today's slides, that you do look to utilise the chat function, it'd be most appreciated. And at the end of today's session, we'll have a moment for some Q&A should any of the questions that get raised have not been answered. So today we have Neil from Balfour Beatty, we've got Crock and Sean from Vick, and we've also got Paul from the British Drilling Association. So thank you, chaps, for coming today and presenting with the Pipeline Industry Guild. Without further delay, I'm going to now pass over to Neil. I'm going to turn my camera off because you've seen enough of me for today, and we'll catch up again later in today's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and good afternoon. I think it's ticked over everybody. As Dan said, Neil Johnson. I currently work for Balfour Beatty. Some of you may know me from different guises and different parts of my career. What I think this webinar is about is a bit of an education exercise in terms of a tragic incident that happened almost a year ago on the 27th of April in 2023. Where on the Balfour Beatty Vinci, where I was working at the time, construction project in one of our sublots at Bickenhill, just outside Birmingham, an individual working for Harper Pipeline Services carrying out a HDD drilling operation was tragically injured and then subsequently died as a result of their injury whilst they were, pulling in pipe using a coil trailer, on the back of a HDD drilling operation. I was at the time the director of health, safety, and wellbeing, so it was my job to pull together the principal investigation team. Appoint the lead investigator, and then follow the process through with the various authorities. And my last act, effectively, of this was to attend the coroner's inquest, which happened in January, and then work through an agreed communication plan. And some industry guidelines that have been agreed, which I'm going to take you through as part of a communication plan, which was agreed with the Health, Safety and Security Committee of HS2, which is chaired by a lady called Dame Judith Hackett, who headed up the Grenfell inquiry and was the former head of the Health and Safety Executive. So that's where I'm at. I think, Dan, if you can just share the animation now, please, and I think that will give a lot of context to where we're at. My name is Neil Johnson. I'm the Director of Health, Safety and Wellbeing at Balfour Beatty Vinci Area North. The following animation is based on witness statements and shows the events leading to a tragic accident which resulted in a fatality in April 2023. Today's activity was to install 100 metres of 180mm SDR11 ducting to allow the diversion of a high voltage cable. The tunnel to accept the duct had been completed the previous day. During the last stages of dispensing the pipe sprang out of the bottom rear quadrant and struck the driller, resulting in blunt force injury. This animation is issued along with a safety update on safe operations and actions to be taken when working with coil trailers. There is also important safety information regarding the safe systems of work which need to be observed when using this type of equipment. Thank you, Dan. If we can get that off the screen. Not sure whether there's any more slides in there. Okay, right. So where we, I think obviously that should hopefully give quite a lot of context to what actually happened. And as I said at the head of the call, you know, I'd worked and have worked in and around the gas industry, you know, for close on 40 years of my career, and I'd never seen that sort of situation happen on the hundreds of sites I've been on where coil trailers were in use. And clearly, you know, when such a tragic accident happens, the thing that any investigation and any organisation tries to do afterwards is to prevent it happening again. Now, this job was being done by Harper Services on behalf of Morrison Water Services, who Balfour, Beatty, Vinci, who I was part of, had subcontracted to do this work. But you know, we felt that what we needed to do as Balfour Beatty was and HS2 was to use our, you know, convening power to work directly with coil trailer manufacturers and the wider industry to try to look to see what could happen to prevent such a tragic accident happening again. And at the coroner's inquest, where I spent, you know, 3 days, you know, listening to you know, testimonies and witness statements, and you know, accounts from the family members, because Harper Services is a very tight family business. Many people on this call may have come across them in the past, and it was a very, you know, difficult experience for the family and a difficult experience to go through. But and one of the final things that the coroner did, which is very rare anyway, but it's the first time it happened in the Birmingham and Solihull District Coroner's Court, was he issued a Prevention of Future Deaths Regulation 28, and the two organisations he served that on, and I'll let the guys talk later on this, was the Pipeline Industries Guild and the British Drilling Association, to try to get this message out. But on the back of this, we work with Vick International, who are on the call today, and Tome, who are the other coil trailer manufacturer in the UK, to work on a series of safety devices or safety improvements, effectively. And in and around the upshot of all this was effectively, if you know, the manufacturer's instructions on how to use a coil trailer safely, and the RAMs that were in place on the day of the risk assessments and method statements had been followed, it's highly likely that the individual that was tragically killed would probably still be here today. But notwithstanding the fact that you know RAMs and clamps and restraining straps should be used, what we also felt was that because that pipe had ejected in a way that not many of us in the industry had seen before, or none of us had seen before, that we felt that what we needed to do was apply more guarding to the trailers. So a learnings update was prepared by by ourselves in Balfour, Beatty, Vinci and BB, and that learning alert and all of the things within it were signed onto and agreed with HS2 that HS2 would support the the use and implementation of the recommendations and the learning going forward, as well as the around about the top 35 tier 1 contractors in the UK as well, which was part of the communication plan we went to. And just to put things into perspective, it was basically a two-part learning, really. So what was in place, what needed to be in place before the 31st of July this year, and then what needed to be in place after the 31st of July this year. And very briefly on that, essentially before the 31st of July, it was around a safe system of work being in operation at all times, included training on the risk assessments and method statements that were in place, which included the manufacturer's instructions and safe systems of work. The mandatory use of ratchet straps and pipe end clamps or towing heads. And I guess we've got Steve Vick on the call. They can talk in much more detail in and around that than I'm able to do. But making sure that those pipe end clamps and straps were in place on all pipe coil trailers 125 millimeters and above. We had a permit system in place in Balfour Beatty, and we'll retain that permit system until after the 31st of July. Completion of daily pre-start equipment checks, which are essential, and with the alert we shared some pre-start information. A red zone, no entry safety exclusion zone of at least 2 meters either side of the trailer, and then of at least 4 meters and beyond at the end of the trailer where the pipe is dispensed, because obviously that distance changes depending on where the pipe is being inserted or pulled into the tunnel or the carrier pipe. A clear, safe system of work for cutting the straps as the coil is being dispensed, and making sure that any straps that are being cut is done when the coil dispenser is stationary, and then making sure that all the safety zones and everything else were in place. After the 30, and the reason why it's a two-part learning is that what we agreed with the two coil trailer manufacturers is they would carry out modifications to their large coil trailers 125 millimeter and above, add guarding to both sides of the front and rear quadrants of their coil trailers, but also then fit each coil trailer with an energy dissipation device, of which there are some already available on the marketplace, but clearly each manufacturer needed to make its own decisions on what energy dissipation device they would fit. And so the reason why the alert is in two parts is that after the 31st of July, on all HS2 sites, on all sites where the tier 1, the members of the tier 1 construction forum and Balfour Beatty sites, if somebody turns up to do 125 millimeter and above pipe work on coils using a coil trailer, if the coil trailer does not have the extra guarding, does not have an energy dissipation device, does not have a ratchet strap, does not have an end clamp of some form, then that coil trailer will be, removed from site and won't be used. And so that's why it's in two parts, effectively. So what we did, and I think this has gone out already through the guild and probably through other methods we've shared it. The animation you saw is on one of these private YouTube links. But essentially, we put in place as Balfour Beatty a plant standard of what we'd expect to see coil trailers, the standard that coil trailers will be manufactured to, what they needed to look like, the checklists that need to be put in place, and how they should be operated safely in line with the manufacturer's instructions. We sent the pre-start checklist out. we sent the wider learnings alerts out, and we shared the animation. So clearly that's where we're at. From my perspective, as somebody that started in this industry and always wants to see this industry operating as safe as possible, I was really pleased with the support that I received through, Steve Vick and Tommy and the wider industry to make sure that most people, across the industry signed up to making the, to making the learnings that we put out there pretty much universal across the industry. So, from my perspective, I've got some comfort that hopefully, between now and after the 31st of July, where we're using coil trailers with 125mm and above pipe, then inherently that will be a more inherently safe operation and prevent any deaths going forward, because that's what it's all about. I have to say, I have on my travels past a couple of sites, and I've had to intervene where I've seen 180 pipe being dispensed off coil trailers where people weren't using straps and weren't using end clamps, which is a bit disappointing. But I guess these things always take time. The culture needs to change in the industry, and the sort of assurance around the use of these trailers, and as the new trailers that Steve Vick and Tollmate will manufacture will come out, we'll see that step change in how people use the equipment. And I think that's about me done, Dan. So I'll have a look in the chat to see if there's any questions. But I'll go on to mute now and turn my camera off and start answering the questions if they're in there. Is that okay?
Brilliant. Thank you, Neil. If I could now pass on to Sean and Crock, that would be most appreciated as to how we've overcome the challenge.
So it's Crock Harrison here. Obviously, I'm Steve Vicks. I'm the MD of the company, and I was very much involved, in the inquest inquiry onto what happened at this. And just to give you a bit of, Sean's going to lead you through what we're doing, but a little bit of background on the trailers before we do that. Trailers were developed very much in the 1980s with the event of coils, larger 180 coils coming around. So they've been around for kind of the last 40 years. And as Neil said earlier, I've never, ever known a coil come out the side of a trailer. This was said to have happened on this job there. So this is a whole new thing for us. As far as the coil trailers here, they were developed very much for gas, but we are seeing them used a lot more for ducting and on directional drilling sites, and used a lot more around everywhere else. But as far as the spec is concerned, it's really only the gas industry spec, the GIS spec, that's out there for coil trailers. So that's the one that we adhere to, and that's the one that our trailers approved to. The only other thing with trailers, is they have to be VCA approved as well. So they have to meet the road running specs and all the rest of it. So any changes we make to them, we have to make sure whatever we do with them, they adhere to that, and they're still legal to tow on the roads as well. Safety is paramount to us, and we want to make sure that these new measures are adopted, and we're doing all we can to make sure they are adopted across the industry. So Sean is going to lead you through now the things that we're doing, the improvements we're making, and then we'll take some questions afterwards, I guess.
Okay. Afternoon, everyone. I think I'll ask Dan just to flick to the next slide. I don't think we quite got the control our end. Okay, so if you can click it on one more. Okay, so in light of the incident, what we've been doing ourselves as an organisation is working our way through our database of 180 trailer customers for the last 20 or so years, obviously reminding them of the existing safety features of the trailers and the importance of following the operational instructions in the manual, but also making them aware of the additional equipment that's being developed and trialled and that will become available in the coming months. We're also creating a bulletin that we intend to communicate in the next couple of weeks with the information that you'll be seeing today. So we click onto the next slide, please. So Although there are established safety features and protocols to manage the risk, what we should not do as a supplier or as a sector is say that there's no need for change, we should always look for improvements, just as Neil said earlier on. So working with industry folk like yourselves and other trailer manufacturers, we've agreed to develop additional safety elements for the trailer and its guidance for use. Next slide, please. So exclusion zones are a very good way to separate the workforce from the activity, but we felt that guarding helps to add another layer of protection, as there are times that the operative will need to approach the trailer. What you'll see on screen is we've fabricated some guarding to be retrofitted to the existing fleets of trailers out there, to the 4 lower quadrants of the trailer. Our initial design, which had a sort of solid mesh panel, that you can see in the picture on the right, we found that actually added difficulty with accessing the pipe end clamp and the drum bars during sort of loading the trailer and preparing it for dispensing. So what we did then is we opted for a sliding door design that enables access. So hopefully you can see in some of the drawing images, there's the top left is the doors ultimately open, and as you'll see on the next one, to the middle, then they're closed, and it allows the ability for the doors to slide either way, knowing the nature of how the coil turns, where the clamps may be positioned, or where any adjustment is needed. We've also opted for a slotted guard at the towing hitch end of the trailer that adds for additional protection, but also knowing the access there for cutting, as that's where quite often the side of the trailer where the bands are being cut. I think it's important to note at this stage is that although guarding will be in place, a form of pipe end restraint still must be used. So the guarding doesn't negate the need for pipe end restraint, it's the guarding is an addition to the pipe end restraint. Next slide, please. So on screen is an example of some long reach tooling that we've developed and are trialing. It keeps the operative at a safer distance from the trailer when cutting the bands. It's also important to remember that the bands should only be cut when the coil is stationary and not under load from pulling or winching, etc. Next slide. Pipe end clamps are supplied with the trailers at point of hire or sale in line with the gas industry specification. They're a universal and fit all sizes of PE that the trailer is designed for when slip lining or inserting with a pipe hander or pushing machine. So the pipe end clamp is the middle image. What should be considered that if you are winching or directional drilling, the use of a pipe test end on the left or a towing head on the right, due to the additional pulling forces created by this type of machinery, and also acknowledgement that due to the pulling forces, the additional anchoring of the trailer that might be necessary. Next slide, please. What we've been also doing is conducting some test work with radius systems to measure the pulling forces and the strain on the PE whilst it's being dispensed. There is, historical calculations around a lot of these pulling forces, but we wanted to make sure that we were getting realistic data from the tests. So we managed to carry out this testing from a safe distance using Bluetooth load cells and seeing the data in real time on our tablets as the dispensing was taking place. This data has really helped us design the safety elements mentioned earlier and making sure that they're fit for purpose. Next slide, please. So in addition to the existing communication, what we've been doing is updating our manuals, and our manual is on our website. We've included extra images for clarity and reinforced the guidance for safe use. We've also made sure that at point of delivery, one of our team will run through a 7-point document reiterating the safety information and the requirement for operatives to be trained and competent. We offer briefings on awareness, but we'd recommend you use an accredited EUSR or equivalent training body. Hand you back to Crock now.
Right, thanks, Sean. I think hopefully that gave an overview to everyone what we're doing. I really appreciate everyone joining us to hear what we're doing. Also, I wanted to also thank PIG for facilitating this, also the British Drillers Association for supporting it as well to get this message out there. I think we're going to go over the questions now, probably, and answer some questions. But if we don't cover anything on the call, please do feel free to contact us and any views you've got on the things that we're doing and how you might think it might work. All of these things that we're doing, we're out there trying at the moment. We don't want to kind of fix one problem and cause another. So all of the guarding and all of that is actually out there now, live out there, being tried on live sites with various customers, making sure that it is workable and it's usable and it doesn't hinder the guys doing the jobs, but also makes them a lot safer. So I'll hand you back to Pig now, and we'll, I guess, cover how we handle the questions.
Crock and Sean, thank you ever so much for sharing insight as to the learnings and development of the products as you've gone through your journey. I think we've also got Paul on the call today from the British Drillers Association. Is there anything, Paul, that you wish to add at this stage before we get into the questions and answers? Oh, Paul, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Sorry, yeah,
yes, we can.
Nothing, no, just hopefully the BDA's role in sharing and supporting the learnings and to prevent sort of future incidents are what we're here to do. So if there's any specific questions on drilling, I can probably answer.
Brilliant, thanks, Paul. Okay, so we did get a few questions through on the chat, and I don't know if the presenters just wish to turn the cameras back on so we can all see your faces. And I know Neil's been diligently going through those questions and answering a number of them as others have been presenting. So thank you, Neil. So I can see that a number of these have been answered already, which is fantastic. There is a couple of questions there that may be just outstanding there. The different pipe coil trailers for 180 and 125 pipe. Perhaps Sean, you could just answer that one.
Yeah, there are different. We do have a 125 trailer as well. We've been very much focusing all of our efforts on the 180 at the moment, but once we've done that, that will be a lot easier to implement on our 125 trailers as well. But all of the kind of test work we've been doing is very much with the 180 trailers to make sure, because if it kind of works with them, we're very confident it'll be very easy to then put that onto the smaller trailers as well.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. There's a question from Kevin with regards to the lay safe attachment. So thanks for putting it out there, Kevin. I know that the lay safe attachment has been previously commended with regards to its health and safety offering that it provides to the industry, and I'm sure it would be suitable in certain circumstances to utilise that particular piece of equipment. So thanks for sharing. John has put a question out there with regards to foreseeing the risk and the likelihood of these things occurring, and I'm sure, like everything, we can become oblivious or blinded by the risks associated with the type of work we've done, because we've done it so often in the past and feel that we are comfortable and it won't happen to me, as you say. So it's great to see that we've got these additional measures now being brought in, and I know from personal experience that the tethering of the end of the coil is such an important aspect. So if I can just maybe build on that with regards to a question. So in the water industry in particular, there's a drive to use hygienic pipe, which is often sealed at both ends of the pipe to prevent or reduce the amount of chlorination and cleaning activities. Have you seen any challenges with regards to the end clamping in that circumstance?
We have a clamp that fits on the outside of that for the chlorinated pipe that's been around for a number of years actually, so it does fit on the outside of it. I would say it's a little bit more clunky, and you have to be aware when it's going around within the trailer, because it's on the outside of the pipe rather than the inside, that it doesn't catch. But it's certainly, since the incident, it's not been tried with that clamp, but certainly that clamp has been around for a number of years It's available on our website. We've got data sheets for it, and we've got it available for all the kind of common sizes of PE. So for pre-chlorinated pipe, there is thankfully an answer out there already for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that one, Sean. And I guess Paul's put a comment there from the National Grid that maybe these incidents could have been foreseen with the moments of loss of control through the stored energy that's released when coming off the trailer, and maybe it's a moment where we can just have a moment as a collective to think about Charles. Having worked with Charles in his days working for other organisations, I knew him for his can-do attitude and desire to deliver a positive outcome or result in the field. And then hopefully going forward, we can all take from this and prevent these incidents from occurring. So yeah, really good point to raise, Paul. Thank you. Is there anybody wishing to raise a hand or ask a question? Then please feel free to chip in and talk. I don't know if there's any other questions from within the presenters that wish to be raised. So Nick, Nick Preston, the risk factor may be considered lower below the 125 diameter, but perhaps the consequences and outcome could be higher. Is there any plans for the smaller sizes?
I'm sure as we start to put guards on trailers, I think it will become an industry standard, and I'm sure it will go across all of our models as we do it. We're already looking at it, but our priority at the moment is with the 180s, then 125s, because that's where you've got the most stored energy. But yeah, I think having seen this and seen what happens, I think it will become a standard across all of it to put all of these things in place right across the range, I would say.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Sean. There's a little leading question there with regards to the incident itself. I don't know if it's something you can answer, Neil, or not, but with regards to the end of the coil behaving the way it did, was there any reasoning on this instance?
Yeah, so post the incident, both Crock visited the site. We had a forensic engineer carry out a full investigation, with calculations on the watts wise and workforce. And I think, I say Crock or Sean may want to come in and just either correct or add to what I'm going to say, but I think we're in a situation here where it was a number of factors. So we're using a HDD, it's HDD, so there's a twisting motion. We know that the bands weren't cut, the bands were split, due to the energies as the pipe was just dispensed. We know that the coil trailer was on a bit of an angle, albeit the forensic engineer felt that wasn't a factor. So I think what you've got here is, I hate to use that sort of phrase, but I'll use it, that perfect storm situation where a number of factors all came together and, led to that, the pipe being ejected in that bottom rear quadrant that I'd certainly never ever seen in my career. But I think Paul already mentioned the fact that, a number of learnings in this maybe should have pointed us, to a different place. And never in my career would I have, stood on a job where a coil trailer was being used and felt that where the individual was stood would be, a particularly dangerous place to stand. However, clearly the forensic report, come up with the fact that it was, hence why we put the exclusion zone in place. And I guess the exclusion zone one is an interesting one for me. I think Sean mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again because, I'm fairly passionate about that situation in that, a number of people I've spoken to, ex-colleagues and people that have known me in the utility industry for a long time have said, well, it might be a bit impractical to set up, exclusion zones, around coil trailers. And it's not impractical, guys. It needs planning. It absolutely needs planning. And I think, let's all be honest with each other on this. I started as an apprentice, so I've used trailers, I've abused trailers, I've supervised trailer operations, I've been an engineer, I've been all the rest of it. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, if you plan these operations correctly, you set them up in the right way, you can always establish an exclusion zone. And so an exclusion zone is absolutely 100% sacrosanct here, as well as the ratchet strap, as well as the pipe end clamp, as well as making sure that the rams are followed. So don't kid yourself, please, that you can't set these trailers up in places where safety exclusion zones cannot be achieved, because they can.
Really well put, Neil. You're right. Nothing should be more important than the safety of the people undertaking the task, and it's such a tragedy that unfortunately Charles has lost his life on the end of this, as a result of this incident. I think we're coming towards the end of the question and answers now, but just to sort of reflect a little bit about what the Guild and the British Drilling Association has done. We've obviously sent out an email communication on the back of the lessons learned from the Balfour Beatty Vinci team, and shared with you the learning that they've gone on with regards to the incident that has occurred. Obviously, we've had the webinar today, and if people wish to reflect on this, then please do visit the YouTube channel once it's launched, and I'm sure that the team at the Guild HQ and the British Drilling Association will share this communication out with the wider members and beyond, to ensure that this learning can be felt by everybody within our industry. And then please just watch out for later in the year when we do republish and re-energize this in the Pipe magazine. So without further ado, I'd like to just bring our presentation and our webinar to a close. I do want to think about Charles, so if people wish to stop on and remember Charles, then feel free to do so. If you want to talk about that, then please do. Other than that, I'd just like to thank Neil, Sean, Crock and Paul from the British Drilling Association for coming and joining us today and sharing the story and the journey that you've gone after such a tragic event. Thank you.